Wait before you think this isn't for you. Ask yourself this one question. What if the problem you're dealing with right now is actually the test that proves you already have everything you need to overcome it? Most people don't realize the truth because they're too caught up in the fear. The moment life throws them a curveball, when something breaks, when someone betrays them, when everything feels like it's falling apart, they freeze. They doubt themselves. They start looking outward for a rescue plan. But here's the hard truth. No one is coming. You are the rescue plan. You've always been the rescue plan. Let me tell you something I learned in the field. Real pressure doesn't reveal weakness. It exposes strength you didn't know you had. When I was thrown into situations where failure was not an option, when I was put in a room with someone who wanted to lie, manipulate, deceive me, I didn't wait for the answers. I became the one who figured them out. You don't wait for strength. You build it. You activate it. And you do it one decision at a time. Every single problem, every betrayal, every failure, every rejection is giving you data. That's all it is. Information. It's showing you where to pivot, what to fix, who to trust, and most importantly, who not to trust. But if you're too busy panicking, complaining, or playing the victim, you'll miss the very intel that's designed to get you out of it. Your brain, your mindset, is the most powerful weapon you own, but most people use it against themselves. Instead of saying, "How do I solve this?" they say, "Why me?" And why me is the language of powerlessness. It's the vocabulary of defeat. You need to change the script. Your inner dialogue must become your strategy session. Look, solutions don't appear out of thin air. They appear through action. They show up when you move, when you speak up, when you investigate, when you ask better questions, when you stop running from the pain and start walking toward it with curiosity. Problems are puzzles, and puzzles are solved one piece at a time. So if you're overwhelmed, it's not because the problem is too big. It's because you're trying to carry the entire solution in your head without breaking it down. You don't need all the answers today. You just need to own the belief that you're capable of finding them. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing you can figure anything out. I've faced situations where I didn't have the luxury of waiting for backup, where hesitation could cost lives. And what I learned is this: clarity comes after commitment. You don't need to know how the entire path unfolds. You just need to take the next right step. The second you do, something shifts. Your energy shifts. Your mind sharpens. You become resourceful. This is how powerful you are in your brain, when focused, can make sense of chaos. Your intuition, when trusted, can detect lies and truth in the same sentence. Your courage, when activated, will lead you to places fear never wants you to see. But you've got to decide that no problem is greater than your ability to respond to it. People ask me all the time, "What if I make the wrong decision?" You will. That's part of the process. Stop waiting to be perfect. Start aiming to be precise. Precision is better than perfection. You correct as you go. You course correct with new information. You sharpen your aim after every try. But you've got to try. And I want to be really clear with your pain is not your enemy. Avoiding pain is. When you avoid pain, you delay growth. But when you confront it, when you get quiet, get honest, and lean into it, it becomes your guide. It shows you what you care about. It points to what must change. It leads you to the solution buried underneath the mess. The moment you realize that nothing is unsolvable, your entire life changes. Problems shrink when your thinking expands. You are more capable than you believe, more resilient than you've ever had to prove, and more powerful than the circumstances trying to convince you otherwise. Stop outsourcing your power. Stop negotiating your potential with self-doubt. You have survived everything that was meant to break you. That's not an accident. That's your proof. And that proof should now become your fuel. You have the power to solve any problem, because the answer you're looking for isn't out there. It's been in you this entire time, waiting for you to trust it. Stop looking around hoping it's going to show up and fix it. Because they're not. I need you to understand this deeply. No one is coming. Not your parents. Not your partner. Not your boss. Not the government. You are the rescue plan. And that's not meant to scare you. That's meant to liberate you. Because once you stop outsourcing your power, you start taking it back. You stop playing the victim and start becoming the architect. That shift in mindset, that moment where you realize, this is on me, is when everything starts to change. It's uncomfortable at first. Most people don't want to hear it. They want a savior. They want someone to blame when it goes wrong and someone to lean on when it gets hard. But real growth starts when you stop expecting that rescue to arrive and instead become the one who steps into the fire and figures it out. The truth is, when you rely on someone else to solve your problems, you hand over control. You give away your autonomy. You sit in a position of waiting. Waiting for someone else's timing, someone else's approval, someone else's decision. But when you choose to be your own solution, you move, you act, you problem solve in real time. You get scrappy, you get creative, and you become dangerous, in the best way, because now you're no longer waiting to be rescued. You're executing your own rescue mission. And when that clicks, when you really believe that no matter how dark it looks, you've got the capacity to figure it out, then there is nothing and no one that can keep you down, not permanently. Not if you decide to rise. Pressure isn't the enemy. It's the mirror. It shows you who you really are when everything gets stripped away. When things are calm, anyone can act strong. But when life starts closing in, when you've got deadlines crashing, people turning on you, options disappearing, that's when your real character surfaces. And most people panic. They think, I can't do this. This is too much. And they freeze. But what they don't understand is that pressure is not designed to break you. It's designed to reveal you. It's the test that unlocks the strength you didn't know you had. And the moment you stop seeing pressure as punishment and start seeing it as your proving ground, your entire response changes. When I was under pressure in interrogation rooms or operating in unpredictable environments, I didn't get to say, this is too much. I had to regulate my breathing, control my emotions, trust my training, and lean on my instincts. That pressure didn't destroy me. It focused me. And the same applies to you. When you're under stress, that is the exact moment you begin to evolve. But you've got to lean in. You've got to hold the line. You've got to stop interpreting discomfort as weakness. Because discomfort is just a sign you're stretching into something stronger. Most people tap out too early. They think the heat is a warning. But high performers know, it's just part of the forge. That's where the toughness is made. That's where your true identity is born. And once you've been through that fire and survived it, you don't walk the same. You don't speak the same. You know exactly what you're made of. And you stop letting fear write your story. Every single problem you face is giving you something. It's giving you data. That's all it is. It's not the end of the road. It's not the universe punishing you. And it's definitely not a sign that you're not good enough. It's just information, and the people who rise, the ones who solve things, who break through, who rebuild stronger, they're the ones who learn how to read that data. They don't just react to the pain or the frustration, they study it. They extract the message from the mess. They ask, what is this trying to show me? Where is the opening? What's the weakness in this problem that I can exploit? See, most people waste time dramatizing the problem. They talk about how unfair it is, how exhausted they are, how nothing's working. But drama clouds judgment. When you're emotional, you miss what's obvious. But when you get still, when you detach and look at the situation like a strategist, you start seeing patterns. You start noticing who's consistent and who's not. What keeps failing and why. Where you keep showing up small instead of showing up sharp. That's the power of treating problems like data. Because now it's not personal. It's tactical. And when you operate tactically, you move smarter. You become efficient. You stop bleeding energy in the wrong directions. And more importantly, you start turning setbacks into strategies. So the question isn't, why is this happening to me? It's, what is this trying to teach me that I'll need later when the stakes are even higher? Because trust me, every challenge is preparation. And only the people willing to analyze, adapt, and apply the lesson come out stronger on the other side. Your mind is your most dangerous weapon, or your most destructive one. And the difference between the two, it's how you train it. Most people don't even realize they're walking around with a weapon that's turned against themselves. They let their thoughts run wild, like an untrained dog. One fear triggers another. One doubt multiplies into 10. They say things to themselves they would never say to a stranger, and they wonder why they feel stuck, paralyzed, defeated before they even take a step. It's not the world that's stopping them. It's their own mind, unchecked, unchallenged, and untrained. I've seen this firsthand. People with unbelievable skill sets, talent, intelligence, but their thinking is poisoned. Their self-talk is laced with hesitation, insecurity, and worst of all, permission to quit. And if you allow that kind of thinking to take root, it will dismantle you from the inside. You'll talk yourself out of every opportunity. You'll prepare for failure instead of preparing for impact. You'll see risk everywhere and confidence nowhere. And let me tell you, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how many degrees or connections you have, if you don't master your own mind, it will master you, and it will sabotage everything. But here's the power play most people miss. Your mind can be reprogrammed. It can be trained. It can be reshaped. The same voice that tears you down can be rebuilt to command, to direct, to lead. But you have to decide that your inner world is just as critical as your outer strategy. The way you speak to yourself is not just background noise. It's your operating system. And if your operating system is infected with limiting beliefs, outdated scripts, and negative loops, don't be surprised when the whole system crashes under pressure. When I was under high-stakes stress, whether interrogating someone who wanted to manipulate me, or walking into a room where every eye was watching and every word mattered, I couldn't afford a weak mindset. I had to go in grounded, sharp, unshakable. And that didn't happen because I was born confident. That happened because I trained my mind to work for me, not against me. I replaced fear with focus. I replaced doubt with data. I replaced, what if I fail, with, what do I need to know to win? Because that's how professionals think. They don't let their emotions hijack the mission. Now I want you to really ask yourself, what are you telling yourself when things go wrong? Do you beat yourself up? Do you spiral? Do you say, of course this would happen to me? Or, I knew I couldn't do it. That language, those silent, repeated thoughts, are not harmless. They're programming your decisions, your reactions, your future, and you have to break that pattern, not someday now. Start by paying attention. Awareness is the first step. When your mind goes dark, don't follow it down the tunnel. Stop. Interrupt the pattern. Replace it. Speak to yourself like someone you respect, like someone you are mentoring through the fire. You wouldn't tell your best friend, you're a failure, give up. You'd say, you've been through worse. You're not done yet. We're going to figure this out. So why are you not offering that same inner leadership to yourself? You don't need blind positivity. You need mental discipline. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending everything is okay when it's not. This is about staying in command of your own internal environment so you can operate under pressure without falling apart. That's the real flex. That's what separates high performers from everyone else. It's not that their lives are easier. It's that their minds are stronger. They don't get swept away by fear. They anchor themselves. They create certainty in the middle of chaos. That's trained. That's earned. And if you want to get there, you've got to do the work. You've got to start feeding your mind better content, better language, better questions, better responses. When you catch yourself saying, I can't, reframe it at, what skills do I need to make this happen? When you hear, I'm not ready, shift it to, this is my chance to grow. When you feel overwhelmed, break it down. What's the next right step? This is how you build mental toughness, not with hype, but with clarity and control. Look, the outside world is chaotic. You don't control all of it. You don't decide who betrays you, when the economy hits, or when life throws you something unexpected. But what you do control, every single day, is how your mind responds, whether you feed fear or feed focus, whether you let setbacks define you or refine you, whether your thoughts become your prison or your strategy room. And let me be blunt, if you're not training your mind, someone else is. Social media, the news, other people's opinions, they're shaping how you think, what you believe, and how you move. So if you're not being intentional, if you're not guarding your mind like a fortress, you are letting the world dictate your reality. That's not leadership. That's surrender. And that's not how you build a life on your terms. Your mind is the battleground. And every day you're either reinforcing your power or leaking it. So don't tell me you don't have what it takes. Don't tell me the problem is too big. If your mind isn't aligned, nothing else will be. But once it is, once your thinking becomes your ally, your voice becomes your weapon, and your belief becomes your blueprint, then there is no problem, no setback, no betrayal, no storm that can keep you from finding the solution. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who leads from within, quietly, relentlessly, unbreakably, the quality of your life. How you respond, how you recover, how you lead, comes down to the quality of the questions you ask yourself. And most people don't ask empowering questions. They ask questions that keep them small, stuck, and scared. The moment something goes wrong, they go straight to, why me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And I'll tell you something, that's a dangerous trap. Because those questions do one thing. They drain your power. They turn you into a victim. They take your focus off solutions and put it squarely on the pain. And you cannot solve a problem from a place of emotional paralysis. But you change the entire direction of your life the moment you start asking better questions. Instead of, why me? Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of, why does this always happen to me? Ask, what am I still allowing that's keeping me in this cycle? That one shift, just asking a better question, activates a different part of your brain. It moves you out of survival mode and into problem-solving mode. It sharpens your thinking. It gets you out of the emotion and into the strategy. It puts you back in control. People don't realize that the brain is like a search engine. It answers whatever you type in. So if you keep typing in questions like, why am I such a failure? Your brain is going to pull up every file, every memory, every doubt that supports that. But if you ask, what's one thing I can do differently right now to take back control? Your brain will start scanning for a path forward. That's the power you hold. That's how you flip the script, not by wishing, not by hoping, but by thinking like a leader, especially when it's hard. When I was in situations where I had to make fast, high-stakes decisions, I didn't have time to get stuck in blame or self-pity. I trained myself to ask sharp questions. What do I know right now? What's missing from this picture? Who can I trust and who do I need to watch more closely? Questions like that. They bring clarity, they bring direction. They help you cut through the noise and zero in on what matters. That's how professionals operate. That's how warriors move. So next time you hit a wall, I want you to check your language. Audit your inner dialogue. What are you asking yourself? Are your questions keeping you in the problem, or are they pulling you toward the solution? Because the moment you upgrade your questions, you upgrade your outcomes. And that right there is a skill. It's a mindset, and it will change the way you experience everything. From relationships to business to your own personal growth. Start asking questions that activate your power, not your pain. Because the answers you get will only ever be as strong as the questions you dare to ask. Everyone wants clarity. Everyone wants certainty. They want the plan laid out perfectly before they make a move. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get the map before the mission. You get the mission, and then you build the map as you go. You don't wait for clarity to commit. You commit, and then the clarity follows. That's how this works. You take action first. You make the decision. You say, I'm in, even when the road isn't clear. Especially when it's not. That's what separates people who lead from people who hesitate. The ones who lead don't have it all figured out. But they trust themselves to figure it out along the way. They trust that they'll adjust, that they'll adapt, that they'll learn fast and move smart. The ones who wait for everything to feel perfect, they never move. They get stuck in analysis. They overthink, overquestion, overcomplicate. And in the meantime, the opportunity passes, the moment moves on, and so does their potential. In my world, I didn't have time to pause and ask for the full picture. There was no sitting around waiting for all the pieces to line up. I had to make calls in real time, sometimes with limited intel and high consequences. And that's when I learned one of the most powerful truths. Clarity is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct of movement. You act, and in the process of acting, the path reveals itself. You make the call, you gather feedback, you correct course. But none of that happens if you just sit still. So many people hold themselves back waiting for some kind of permission, waiting until they feel ready, waiting until they feel certain. But confidence doesn't come from certainty. It comes from courage. It comes from taking that first uncomfortable step when everything inside you wants to play it safe. It comes from showing up without all the answers, and being willing to earn them in the field, not in your head. You don't build strength by thinking about lifting the weight. You build it by lifting. You don't develop clarity by sitting in indecision. You get it by doing. You take a shot, evaluate, refine, and go again. And that kind of forward movement, that relentless commitment even when it's messy, that's what builds unstoppable momentum. I want you to get this, 'cause if you keep waiting for clarity to show up before you move, you're going to wait your whole life. Clarity doesn't knock. You earn it. You earn it by deciding, by stepping into the unknown and trusting that who you are becomes enough as you go. And when you make that shift, when you stop waiting and start owning the next move, you stop being stuck and you start being dangerous. Because now, nothing slows you down. Not confusion, not fear, not the lack of a perfect plan. Just commitment, just action, and that's where your power lies. Too many people are waiting for the perfect moment, the flawless plan, the guarantee that they won't mess up. And let me tell you, waiting for perfection is the fastest way to kill your momentum. Perfection is a trap. It disguises itself as ambition, but underneath, it's fear. It's fear dressed up as high standards. It's hesitation in a nice outfit, and it will keep you frozen, stuck in the planning phase, constantly tweaking, adjusting, second-guessing. You keep saying, "I'm just not ready yet," but what you're really saying is, "I'm afraid to be seen trying and not getting it right." You don't need to be perfect. You need to be precise. You need to execute, review, adjust, and execute again. That's the cycle. That's how you grow. That's how professionals operate. You try something, you learn from it, and you refine. You get in the game and course correct in real time. The people who win, they're not the ones who waited until everything was perfect. They're the ones who moved with what they had and got sharper with every move. That's how you build mastery, not by waiting for perfection, but by taking repeated, focused action. When I worked in environments where the cost of inaction was high, I learned quickly that hesitation could cost more than making the wrong move. And guess what? Sometimes I did make the wrong move, but I didn't let it define me. I used it. I studied it. I made sure it made me stronger, because that's the only way forward. You take the shot, you analyze the outcome, you upgrade your strategy. Not in theory, in practice. Stop fearing mistakes. Start fearing missed opportunities. Start fearing the loss of time, the loss of growth, the loss of potential that comes from sitting still. Perfection is not only unrealistic, it's unnecessary. No one expects you to get it all right the first time, but they will respect the one who shows up, steps up, and stays in the fight long enough to get it better. Precision comes through repetition. Accuracy comes through exposure. And the only way you get either is by stepping into the arena again and again, no matter how imperfect it looks. You're not here to impress anyone. You're here to improve. You're here to sharpen your edge, to evolve. And that doesn't happen behind closed doors obsessing over every tiny detail. It happens when you make bold moves, fall, get back up, and come back smarter. That's how you become powerful. That's how you become unshakable. You don't wait to be perfect. You start now, and you build precision along the way. Most people spend their lives running from pain. The moment it shows up, they numb it, deny it, or distract themselves with something shiny. Social media, food, gossip, shopping. Anything to avoid sitting in the discomfort. But here's what they don't realize: pain isn't the enemy. Pain is the messenger. It's not there to punish you. It's there to teach you, to alert you, to show you exactly what needs your attention. It's a signal, a code, and if you're brave enough to decode it, it will lead you straight to your breakthrough. Pain tells you where the wound is. It tells you what you've been tolerating that you shouldn't. It tells you who's been overstepping, where you've been abandoning yourself. What patterns you keep repeating that are keeping you stuck. It's not comfortable, but growth never is. Real growth doesn't come wrapped in convenience. It comes wrapped in challenge, in discomfort, in those moments where you're forced to confront what you've been avoiding for far too long. And I get it. Facing your pain feels like a risk. It means standing still long enough to hear your own thoughts. It means looking at the truth without filters or excuses. That's not easy. But avoiding it only delays the inevitable. It festers, it multiplies, and then one day it explodes into your relationships, your confidence, your career, your health. What you don't deal with will eventually deal with you. I've sat across from people who were trained to lie, manipulate, hide every truth. But pain, it still found its way out. You can't fake being whole. You can't outrun what's chasing you inside. And the moment you stop pretending it's not there, and instead say, okay, what are you trying to show me? That's when you take your power back. That's when pain becomes a guide, not a prison. That's when it stops controlling you and starts serving you. See, pain isn't just emotional. It's also directional. It points you to where your boundaries need to be stronger, where your standards need to rise, where your healing still needs work. It tells you where the fire is so you can put it out, or use it to forge something unbreakable in you, but only if you're willing to listen. Only if you stop numbing and start noticing. The strongest people I've met aren't the ones who've avoided pain. They're the ones who faced it head on. They've cried, screamed, fallen apart, but they didn't stay there. They picked up the lesson, stood back up, and walked out of the fire carrying something they didn't have before: wisdom, grit, and a level of self-respect that doesn't shake when the ground does. You want to change your life. Don't avoid your pain. Investigate it. Learn from it. Use it. Because pain will either break you or build you. You decide which one it becomes. You're more resourceful than you think. You just haven't been forced to see it yet. And that's what adversity does. It pushes you into corners where your excuses don't work anymore. It forces you to tap into parts of yourself that comfort never demanded. When things are easy, when everything's going smoothly, you don't need to stretch. You don't need to dig deep. But when life knocks you off your feet, when things fall apart, when the plan goes sideways, that's when your real power gets activated. That's when you discover what you're actually capable of. But too many people shut down when they hit resistance. They freeze. They say, I don't know what to do. And they stop. They wait for someone to step in. They underestimate themselves because they've never practiced fighting for their own answers. And that's the trap. The second you tell yourself you're stuck, the second you believe there's nothing else you can do, you've already surrendered your power. You've handed it over to the problem. But if you stop and look back at your life, strength, you'll realize you've already solved things you once thought were impossible. You've already made it through days you didn't think you'd survive. And yet here you are, still standing. You don't give yourself enough credit. You don't see that the strength you're searching for is already there. It's just buried under fear, under hesitation, under that voice in your head that keeps saying, what if I fail? Let me be clear, and the only real failure is not trying. Resourcefulness doesn't mean having all the tools. It means learning how to use what you've got. It's about asking the right questions, finding the right people, being willing to research, to learn, to try, to mess it up and do it better next time. Resourcefulness means being relentless in the pursuit of a solution. Not just once, but as many times as it takes. It's refusing to believe that stuck is permanent. It's looking at the wall in front of you and saying, fine, I'll go around it, over it, under it, or straight through. But I'm not staying here. When I was in the field, I didn't always have the luxury of perfect circumstances. I had to work with what was in front of me. I had to rely on instinct, quick thinking, adaptability. And those skills, they were sharpened in high pressure, not theory. The same goes for you. You don't need a perfect plan. You need the mindset that says, I'll figure it out. That belief alone unlocks doors. It rewires your brain to look for angles, to find the hidden openings, to push past the noise and find the one move that changes everything. So stop saying you can't. Stop talking yourself out of trying. You are not helpless. You are not waiting to be saved. You are capable. You are equipped. And the moment you stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as puzzles to solve, everything changes. You stop feeling small. And you start getting strategic. You stop wasting energy on panic and start pouring it into progress. Because deep down, you already have everything you need. You just have to stop doubting it long enough to use it. You've already survived what was meant to break you. Think about that. everything that tried to take you down. Every betrayal, every failure, every heartbreak, every moment you thought, "This is it, I can't get through this." You did. Maybe you crawled. Maybe you stumbled. Maybe it nearly took all you had. But you're still here. You didn't quit. You didn't vanish. You endured. And that's not a small thing. That's not something to overlook. That's your proof. That's your evidence. So the next time you're faced with something hard, something that rattles you, something that makes you question whether you've got what it takes, go back to your own track record. Look at everything you've already come through. That's who you are. That's what you're made of. But the problem is, you forget. You minimize your resilience. You tell yourself that what's in front of you now is different, that it's bigger, that you're weaker. That's the lie. That's fear trying to convince you that your strength has an expiration date. It doesn't. Your resilience compounds. It grows. Every time you get through something hard, you don't just survive. You upgrade. You level up. You sharpen your instincts. You become faster at spotting red flags. You become clearer about what matters. And that wisdom, that experience, that is your competitive advantage. I've sat across from people who looked tough on the outside but folded the second things got real. And I've watched quiet, underestimated, overlooked people rise with a fire that shocked everyone in the room. Why? Because they had been through it. And they didn't forget what it taught them. They used it. That's the edge. Your past is not a weight unless you let it be. It's a weapon, but only if you carry it the right way. You don't need more motivation. You need to remember who you are. You need to remember what you've already handled. Because if you really take a moment and reflect on all the times you said, "I don't know how I'm going to make it through this," and yet somehow you did, that tells you something. It tells you that the power is already there. The fight is already in you. The problem isn't whether you can do it. The problem is whether you're going to allow doubt to silence that power. So stop waiting for someone else to remind you of your strength. Stop seeking permission to believe in yourself again. Your life has already given you the evidence. It's time to act like it. Every scar, every lesson, every comeback, it's not just part of your story. It's your fuel, and if you've made it this far, then trust me, you're not done. You're just getting started. You don't need to be rescued. You don't need to be perfect. And you don't need to have every answer today. What you need is the courage to take ownership of your life. Fully, unapologetically, and without excuses. You need to trust that no matter what stands in front of you, you have the intelligence, the resilience, and the instincts to break through it. Because everything you've been through up until now has been preparing you, not punishing you, for what you're meant to rise into. The solutions you're looking for aren't hiding outside of you. They're buried beneath your own fear, and once you stop waiting, stop running, and start deciding, that's when everything shifts. So stop questioning your strength. You've already proved it. Now it's time to use it. The power to solve any problem is already yours. Act like it, speak like it, move like it, because the moment you do nothing, not even the problem itself, stands a chance,